thinking about, how do you use this concept, which is so good to enhance not only the, efficiency of the procurement process, but also to deliver effectiveness along with the efficiency so that the citizen can see the value in the process, right? Please click on. So whatever the strategy which we have for the circular procurement is based on the principle of circular economy itself, right? Say, for example, in circular procurement of infrastructure, what we focus on minimizing total amount of materials which is going into the infrastructure project. We try to minimize the environmental impact of materials, extend the useful life of the infrastructure by suitably taking in, design measures, maximize the usability of the elements, various parts which has gone into the infrastructure, and maximize the recyclability of the materials. So these are fundamentals, right? And based on the circular economic principle, and these are going to be remain the same, in the coming future as well. Next slide, please. But the concept of circular economy itself is undergoing change, right? We started with the linear economic system, and we articulated how to we move from the linear economy to the circular economy. Next, please. And we developed various models, to enhance the circularity in the, in the business or in the government process or in the procurement and so on. So we have focus on geo-waste manufacturing, some of the model focus on product to system, moving from product to system, then focus on take-back system. But if you look at all these models, right, these are all models are based on, top driven, and it's based on the proprietary technology. For example, if company A has innovated something, it remains with the company A. No one else has access to those knowledge, right? So people are thinking, given the amount or scale of challenges, especially with respect to the resource constraint and the environmental impact which we have on the infrastructure, and also due to the other business process. So people are thinking to move away from, this centralized circularity to, next slide, please. Yeah, to distributive security, where, which is based on the open standard, open source, open data, and right, it's based on the knowledge commons, right? And this changes, which is happening in terms of evaluation of circular economy concept itself is driving some of the changes in the circular procurement as well, right? Which we will see. And next slide, please. And these trends, it also reflect some of the challenges which we face in the, integrating circularity in the procurement of infrastructure and unlocking, the sustainable value. So the first trend which I see is, shift from R principle to the design. We started with the 3R, moved to 6R, then 9R, then 11R, right? But what do you do when you want to, recycle something at the end of the life, unless it has been designed for recycling? What do you do when you want to use, but it hasn't been designed for the use? What do you do when you want to disassemble some of the assembly part of the building and want to use it at somewhere, unless it has been designed for disassembly? So shift is happening from the R focus on R principle, to the design stage, to the planning stage of the procurement of infrastructure. And the second is material passport. Again, has emerged from the distributed model, in the sense infrastructure is going to last for 30 years, 50 years, and so on. Many of us, we may or may not be alive at that point of time. But the material which has gone into the infrastructure, like, after 30 years, after 50 years, when whoever is managing those infrastructure, how will she know that what material component has gone into the building or the infrastructure, right? So again, the focus is on, getting all the data related to the materials which is going into the building or which is going into the infrastructure, in a digital form and store it so that it could be accessed by any infrastructure manager at the end of 30 years, 50 years, and they can take decision based on information. And the third is, development of testing and certificate standards, right? As I said, like infrastructure is being designed for, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, maybe sometime 100 years, right? So, okay, so I'm using recycled materials. But what about the quality of the materials which is going into the infrastructure? Is it going to last for 30 years, 50 years, for which the building or infrastructure has been designed, right? So there are challenges in that aspect as well. And that is why the focus is on, developing a testing protocol for those kind of materials or the innovation which is happening in terms of circularity, right? And also developing, certification system and standards so that, contracting authority could be assured that, okay, if this material, recycled material or recycled refurbished material has been certified, then he or she could be assured that, okay, the quality is good and that it will last for, 30 or 40, 50 years or so on. And fourth trend, which we are seeing and which we are going to see is mapping the marketability of the secondary products or materials, right? Say, for example, a contracting authority in Shah Alam province of Malaysia, she wants to, design a building using the circular materials or secondary materials. So where are the information available for secondary materials? Today, as on date, is nowhere, right? So we need to capture those data so that, the contracting authority could be assured of that, okay, the way I'm going to design, I'm going to get the materials also for this, right? And so some attempt by some government is already happening in this regard. And I think this trend will pick up in the coming times as well. And the last trend which I see is circularity indicators, right? So say, I'm for construction of, I want to construct a building, right? And I am using 100 recycled bricks, right? I will say that my building is, circular, right? Because I have used the recycled brick or I have reused the already existing bricks. But somebody said that I have used the entire, bricks uh, from the secondary sources, which was, some building structure at the end of the life, and we have used this for the new construction. So mine is the circular one. So how do you measure circularity, right? Today, anybody can claim that, okay, my structure, my infrastructure or building is a circular, right? So again, people and, many of the governments are working on developing standards or indicators, so that circularity could be measured in terms of, based on the several parameters. So I see these trends, Ajay, I mean, very good trends in the sense that it also addresses the problem of circularity at this point of time, integrating circularity into infrastructure procurement, right? And it is also addresses the question of, the shift which is happening in the concept of circular economy from centralized, model to the distributed models. So thank you very much. I will stop here because we have, panel of great speakers on this subject, and we'll learn more about what is happening in their area of works related to the circular procurement of infrastructure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sanjay, for the nice capture of the global trends and also the strategies for circular procurement. So now let me bring you to the first panel discussion, readiness and challenges of sustainable public procurement for enhancing circularities and low carbon in procurement of infrastructure projects. I'm delighted to introduce you our panelists. Michael Stido, head of the European Investment Bank or EIB, regional representations to South Asia procurement pledge expert in the Singapore branch. And we also have Jana Silkova, country director of Caritas Czech Republic in Mongolia. And last but not least, we have Xiu Gao, senior engineers at China Architecture, Designs and Research Group. And these sessions will be moderated by Elodie Mariasu, our key expert. And please be reminded to type your question in the chat box. And now over to you, Elodie.
Thank you so much for this introduction, Dr. Nan. Thank you. And I would like to open this panel after this very interesting presentation. Thank you, Sanjay, by giving the floor to Dr. Xiu Gao and asking Dr. Gao, in your view, how can SPP for infrastructure projects enhance the circularity of resources and promote the circular economy? And maybe you could help us by highlighting some specific achievements. And also, it would be really interesting to hear from you, Dr. Xu, about your country, China's readiness to integrate circular economy in infrastructure projects, in the purchasing decisions that are made by the government or the local authorities about infrastructure projects. So now I leave the floor to you, Dr. Gao.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. It's my pleasure to introduce a little bit about the situation of SPP in China. But I would like to mention beforehand that I'm not an expert in the procurement process. It's just from our projects and also some other experiences that we got in touch with the experts in the material side and the demand side, etc. We are kind of like an institute working on the planning and design. So we have a lot of contacts in the demand side, but also the regulatory side. So for the procurement, especially for the infrastructure projects and also the public buildings, etc. I think that's really an important tool for enhancing the resource circularity and promote the circular and low carbon economy, because it promotes the use of recycled materials, especially in our infrastructure projects and public buildings, because in China, the building and construction sector really is the key sector among the industrial sectors, and we have a lot of experience of the very rapid urbanization period. So the construction side, including our infrastructures, changed a lot in the past decades, I would say, especially for real estate and public buildings, etc. So in the field, for example, in the field of the building materials, these days we are promoting the use of recycled steel and large portion of the concrete. They are in some other infrastructure projects, these materials has been promoted to for signing the contracts. This will not only reduces the demand for the steel production, but also consumes the steam production, but also significantly cuts down some carbon emissions. And also the use of the concrete, because in China, we are the world's largest, so to say, the concrete and steel producers, and that's a huge amount of carbon emissions and energy consumption every year. So now, since the cement production is a major source of carbon emissions, this measure, the promotion of SPP, can effectively promote the resource circularity and the carbon reduction. Also, it drives the technological innovation. Because of the promotion from the central government and also relevant ministries at also the municipalities. So to meet the requirements of the sustainable procurement, the enterprises, they are motivated to invest in the research and development of low carbon technologies. Also, promoting the SPP, this action promotes the standardization of the entire industry, because in China, the national government is strengthening the formulation and improvement of relevant standards, and also trying to promote the carbon reduction. And I remember just in January this year, the several ministries including the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development, and the Ministry of Information Industry. So they jointly promoted another document to enlarge the procurement and the management requirements, so that the local governments, they can take actions to promote the sustainable procurement in their public procurement projects, including the infrastructure, but also the public buildings like schools, the hospitals, etc. So yeah, that's how we promoted the circular economy and the concepts of sustainability in these projects. I think that contributes not only to the environmental impacts reduction, the carbon emission reduction, and included the level of innovation and also in general contributes to sustainable development of the society. So as mentioned earlier, that the government, several ministries together jointly released some of the policies at national level, but also at local level, the municipalities, each of the cities, there are some pilot municipalities, they would introduce their specific guidelines and codes for the procurement process. So that the green building materials, the green and energy efficiency material products, etc., are extremely promoted and encouraged at the local level. Yeah, and I think nowadays the enterprises, the governments, and also the demand side, different stakeholders, they are getting more and more interested in the concept of sustainability and circularity, etc. And also for the normal people, citizens, they also want to have a healthier and a more sustainable, healthy living environment. So I think we have a lot of work needs to be done, but at the same time, it's getting really encouraged by the government and also jointly by our industry players. Yeah, I think that's for now.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Dr. Gao. This was really enlightening to see how there's a vision and a drive from the Chinese government at all levels, national and local, for this change of and choice of materials that really can transform the economy. Thank you very much. And now I will go to our next panelist, Ms. Yana Zhilkova, and to learn a little bit more about her experience, in particular in Mongolia, and to hear from you, Yana, what was Mongolia's readiness to integrate circular economy principles in purchasing decisions of infrastructure projects, and also if you could tell us about maybe the challenges to integrating circular economy in construction, and what were their attempts to address those challenges, and maybe some success stories. Thank you, Yana. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this very important panel talking about extremely important topic of SPP. I have been living and working in Mongolia since 2018. Over the past 7 years, I have had the privilege to contribute to several impactful projects supported by the European Union and Switch Asia program, focusing on construction, demolition waste, plastic recycling, and sustainable agricultural practices, including eco-labeling. And it has been incredible to witness and actively contribute to the progress Mongolia has made toward building a more sustainable future, particularly in the area of circular economy. Mongolia's journey towards sustainable public procurement has been greatly facilitated by the technical support of the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change through the Switch Asia SCP facility. This support, particularly in sustainable public procurement, has been instrumental. It led to drafting the Sustainable Public Procurement SPP Action Plan in 2022, which was a significant milestone that outlines a practical step-by-step approach to implementing SPP. In addition to developing this action plan, several important initiatives took place. such as capacity building programs, integration of sustainability criteria into procurement laws, and improvements in procurement transparency and public engagement. These efforts reflect Mongolia's commitment to advancing sustainable public procurement, ensuring that government spending supports environmental protection, social equity, and economic efficiency. However, as it is often the case, the challenges lie not in creating sustainable policies, but in their implementation. The policies and plans usually remain on paper due to challenges such as a lack of political will, insufficient budgets, and resistance to change from private sector actors. These are the key barriers to successful integrating circularity into procurement practices. In terms of our organization's readiness to adopt circular economy principles, we have long adhered to internal green procurement policies and international best practices. We carefully select our vendors and contractors, ensuring that sustainability and quality are key considerations in every decision. We have always prioritized the long-term value and impact of the goods and services we procure over simply purchasing in larger quantities. As a result, our organization has often been recognized as a pioneer in sustainability and green procurement. But beyond the typical challenges faced in the region and elsewhere, there are also additional hurdles to successfully integrating circularity into procurement. However, rather than focusing on the obstacles, we have always preferred to focus on solutions that can apply both locally in Mongolia and as well as globally. One of the key solutions to overcoming the challenges of sustainable public procurement is resilience. Despite being told our ideas and proposals were too ambitious for local conditions, we persisted. For instance, in 2016, most of the construction companies were initially unwilling to discuss the problem of construction and demolition waste in Mongolia. However, with the support from the Ministry of Construction and Urban Development, we implemented the first law on managing construction and demolition waste, demonstrating that change is possible. Similarly to this issue, in 2020, stakeholders in waste management were initially reluctant to engage with the 2017 waste law, with the amendments to the 2017 waste law, which had not fully been implemented. But as priorities shifted on all levels, the law was revisited, and through persistence, progress was made. Our resilience, commitment to core values, and hard work have been key in overcoming challenges and driving these initiatives forward. However, the journey towards sustainable public procurement is ongoing in Mongolia as well as in the broader region, and continued effort and collaboration are essential. With this, we believe that Mongolia and other regions can overcome the barriers to sustainable procurement and circularity and build a more sustainable future for all.
Thank you so much, Yana, and thank you for this enlightening us again on how SPP, when it's driven by a clear policy, can make a real difference. And I encourage those who are interested to learn more about Mongolia's experience to learn more about your project on the Switch Asia website, where it's described, and all the results and the impact of your project are described. Thank you so much, Yana. And now, last but not least, I would like to pass the floor to Mr. Michael Steidel, who can give us a different perspective, more about financing institutions. So, Mr. Steidel, you work for the European Investment Bank. Maybe you can first explain to us a little bit what is the European Investment Bank, and also what is the role of financial institutions such as the EIB to promote SPP for infrastructure projects and to ensure that circularity is embraced in infrastructure projects. And also, you can let us know if what are the challenges that EIB may face, and how EIB is trying to to address these challenges and maybe to transform them into successes. Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elodie, for this introduction. First of all, let me please say that I was announced as a procurement expert from the Singapore branch. That kind of sneaked into the description. I'm the head of representation in New Delhi, the representation to South Asia. I'm not a procurement expert myself. We have a lot of people working on procurement in the European Investment Bank, and we also don't have a Singapore branch. So there must have been a small mistake of switching that in, and I don't want to raise any false expectations about me. But I will tell you a bit what, as you said, what the European Investment Bank is. So the European Investment Bank is what many people don't really know. We're the largest multilateral development bank in the world. We're a bank of the European Union, means the EIB is owned by the 27 member states of the European Union. And we have annual commitments, annual signatures. Last year we had 88 billion euros of annual signatures, which makes us the largest multilateral financier in the world now. Now, most of that is inside the European Union, for projects inside the European Union, but we also have our directorate that is called EIB Global, which deals with projects outside of the European Union. There we had around 9 billion of commitments last year. And out of that, 1.3 billion was in the Asia Pacific region. So just for you to get a global overview of what we're doing. Normally, let's say on an institutional level, around 1/3 of what we do is in public infrastructure, right? Infrastructure projects. So if you think about 1/3 of 88 billion, that's around about 30 billion euros that we do. We usually finance about a maximum of 50% of a project. So that means that the projects that we finance have a total volume of at least 60 billion euros per year, which then gives you an idea of the importance that procurement of works for public infrastructure has for the European Union and for the European Investment Bank, and also the EIB in the procurement market, right? In Asia Pacific, as I said, we had 1.3 billion last year. This was actually mainly public infrastructure. Yeah, we're doing, I can tell you a bit in South Asia what we're doing. So in India, we're very active in the building of urban mobility projects. We are currently building the metros in 7 mid to large-sized Indian cities. We are very active in the water sector in Bangladesh, for example, and also getting into India with this sector. We're working in hydropower projects in Nepal, in Bhutan. In Bhutan, we're doing hydropower and solar energy. So we're very active in renewable energy, urban mobility, transport in general, water sector. That is where we mostly concentrate our activities in South Asia, which is where I can speak mostly to, because, as mentioned, I'm representing the EIB towards that region. We call ourselves the climate bank, which means that climate considerations and environmental considerations have a very, very big importance for us. In general, all over the EIB, 60% of our portfolio is climate related. In South Asia, even more. So in India, for example, 90% of what we do is actually climate related. So this has an overarching importance for us, which means that our procurement people in the bank, they are working on sustainable procurement and specifically also on guidelines for circular procurement. You have asked us about the challenges that we encounter in this area. Now, I have talked to our procurement experts before this webinar, and they told me that the way we look at circularity in procurement means a switch of the whole logic of procurement, going from let's say more linear view to having a perspective of the whole life cycle of a project and of the whole possibility of circularity in this life cycle, which actually then has a lot of implications for cost calculations and for measurement, that is quite complex. So one of the problems that we usually encounter is that the procurement laws and regulations, because procurement is done by our promoters in the countries, right? Where we check that they are in line with our standards. So these procurement laws and regulations are often not really equipped to work directly with circularity considerations, and there have to be substantial adjustments made. Yeah. In terms of capacities, the problems and the challenges that we encounter is, first of all, we need new tools also for the measurement of this life cycle perspective, with new measurement tools that actually allow us to implement this life cycle perspective. We have very often a lack of understanding that we see from at the level of the promoters, and at the level also of the bidders. That's a very new. These are very new ideas that we're implementing here. So it will take a while until this gets fully absorbed. And very often the purchasers, meaning the promoters in our sense, also have challenges in defining and articulating their requirements, which is quite important when it comes to procurement. From a market perspective, what we also can see is there's a lack of standards at the moment. So there's not yet any clearly defined standards for circularity in procurement. And very often we also find unavailability of products that are actually available to implement. Now, how can we, as a multilateral development bank, how can the European Investment Bank help to overcome these challenges? So one of the things that we're doing is in general developing policies, tools, and guidance for the market. So our people are actually working at the moment at the draft of a guidance note regarding circular public procurement for operations outside of the European Union, which is something that, while not an implementable standard, but can at least provide guidance and some kind of best practice considerations that can be taken into account when adapting laws and regulations and procurement schemes. Capacity building and support to our promoters, that is very important for us. That is something that we have in almost all of our operations, where we offer technical assistance to our promoters and help them in defining their procurement requirements, help them in procurement processes, help them in I would say all along the project cycle, also in the implementation of the project itself, in the definition of the let's say of the preparatory studies. So project preparation, project implementation includes procurement for us, and their capacity building and support is very important. Also internal capacity building. So we're currently working on a training scheme and capacity building scheme for internal purposes. Means also for EIB staff itself and for our promoters, who are actually then in charge of implementing these procurement exercises. That you get an idea of what we do in terms of technical assistance. For example, in the area I mentioned, the metros in India that we're building. So there we have built with our own resources, we have built and staffed a competence center for urban mobility based in the greater Delhi area, that actually supports all of these promoters of metro projects in project preparation and implementation, and also in procurement. We have a relatively big office there with 24 urban mobility experts working, that are paid by the EIB, and then that are actually there in support of these procurement exercises. And they also will gradually work on introducing considerations of circularity in our procurement schemes. And finally, what I think that multilateral development banks are also very well set up to do is to create and support knowledge networks. In that sense, the EIB is at the moment working on a circular city center, but that is inside the EU. But this just as an example of what we support. As I said, also this competence center in India is kind of a, it's not really a network, but it's something that actually contributes to the dissemination of best practices in this area. That's it from my
That's
side.
fascinating,
And back to
Michael.
you.
Thank you so much. I'm really interested in this circular city center of EIB, and it connects nicely to some other topics Switch Asia has been working on circular knowledge hubs. So that's really fascinating. Thank you very much for these inputs, all three of you from panel one. It's really interesting to see everything that's going on in China and Mongolia, and also through financing institutions that are through their operations, the backbone of many of these infrastructure projects. And I will pass the floor to Dr. Nan, who handles Q&A. There haven't been many questions, but I'll let her take the call for the movement or not to the panel too.
Yes, okay.
Thank you very
So
much.
for Michael, I'm truly sorry for misunderstanding about, yeah, your position. Yeah, very sorry for that. And yeah, back to the Q&A. So actually, I saw not a lot of the question, but then we have one of the very generic questions. What is the difference between the GPP, the Green Public Procurement, and the SPP, Sustainable Public Procurement? So may I ask our senior expert, Sanjay, just to address this, just to clarify this to our audience. Sanjay, could you?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nan, and thank you for the question. I think this is one of the common question which emerged. So in GPP, Green Public Procurement, we consider the economic concerns and environmental concerns in the procurement decision making, right? While in the sustainable procurement, SPP, when we say, we consider all three dimensions of sustainable development, that is the social, economic, and environmental dimensions into the procurement decision, right? So this is what, so you can say that GPP is basically a subset of, sustainable public procurement, right? And the larger concept is sustainable public procurement, but in some reason, GPP is frequently used to also consider, the social aspect as well, say in the European countries. But in the Asia Pacific, if you see, the most of the country, they use GPP, right? That is a focus on environmental and economic aspect in the procurement decisions. So I
Okay.
think this makes clear.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Now it's clear that the difference is whether you consider the social aspect or not. If you consider the social aspect also, so it's going to be the SPP to include all three pillars.
Yeah,
Okay.
and in many of the countries, social aspect is very relevant, like, creating employment or developing the local economy or promoting the SMEs, right? To create the, develop the local. So those are also very important. So it depends on the, what is the priority of the governments, right? Whether they want to focus on the social aspect, economic aspect, or environmental aspects, all three together, or combination of them, it's up to them. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So now I try to check in the chat whether are there any other questions. In case you want to ask the question by yourself, you can also press the buttons to raise your hand as well. So yeah, we will allow you to speak. Okay, so are there any other? Because now I didn't see any others. Okay, so I count 5, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so probably there is no question because I think most of the panelists, they give us a lot of experience sharing about what happened in their respective country. So I think it is very clear, yeah, and very helpful. So yeah. Thank you very much for the panel discussion one. So yeah, on behalf of the team, I would like to thank all three speakers and also our moderator. So now let me move on to the next panel discussion. This will be the second one, and the themes that we are going to focus will be about experiences sharing on key success factors, best practices, and SPP guidelines and tools that support the circular procurement of the infrastructure. And it is my pleasure to introduce you our three panelists. First, Jill Ramos, Chief Sustainable Officer from Holcim Philippines. Second, Natasha Khalil. She is the Associate Professor from the University Technology Mara in Perak, Malaysia. And the third one, we have Mr. Rizky Aditya Putra. He is the Program Manager from Energy Efficiencies and Conservation Department, ASEAN Center for Energy. And these sessions will be moderated by Lantakon Pratumrat, our GPP expert. And again, please feel free to jot down your question in the chat box, and then we will come back with the Q&A session later. And now over to you, Ka, Lantakon.
Thank you, Dr. Panjaporn, for the introduction. My pleasure to moderate this panel discussion on the experience sharing on key success factor, best practice, and SPP guidelines, tools, and supporting the circular procurement of the infrastructure project. So today we will hear valuable insights from our panelists as they share practical experiences and tools that support the circular transition in the infrastructure. So let's start with the first question, which I would like to ask Professor Natasha. Based on your experience developing green government procurement guidelines and your pilot work in Malaysia, what do you see as the key success factor for integrating the circularity into procurement of the infrastructure project? And how can these factors be enabled in practice, particularly in the public procurement?
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Ann, for the warm introductions, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Natasha. I am an associate professor at the Quantity Surveying Department, Faculty of the Environment, University Technology Perak here in Malaysia. But I am also the lead consultant in developing the government green procurement, or what we call here as GGP Works guideline in Malaysia, collaborating with several leading ministries and also agencies here in Malaysia. So first of all, I'm very honored to be part of this insightful discussion on what we are going to discuss about sustainable public procurement, even though in Malaysian context, we have yet to implement sustainable public procurement, as we're currently more focusing on the government green procurement. But I would like to share some of the key success factors on how to integrate this circularity into procurement, especially for large-scale infrastructure projects. Because basically my background as a quantity surveying practices, and also having these discussions about procurement involvement with other consultants as well in infrastructure projects. Firstly, we need to understand the types and characteristics of infrastructure, because why does we call it as a large scale? Because it does not only involve the social infrastructure like schools, hospitals, but infrastructure also involve like highway construction, bridges, railways, airports, and etc. So this industry really largely complex and also unique. It involves various stakeholders, various duties and responsibilities. So if you want to discuss about key success factors, I would like to really focus into 4 key success factors. So the first one is having a clear policy and regulatory framework. The second one is life cycle and system thinking. But I'm going to explain it later. Yeah, it's just to capture the audience about what are the key success factors that I want to explain later on. Okay, and the third one is we need to have a stakeholders readiness and also collaborative approach. And the fourth one is adopting digitalization and also innovation practice. So let me get back to the first one, the clear policy and regulatory framework. Why we are saying that this is the most important success factors to integrate circularity. Okay, the first one, if we have a strong public procurement, because it really empowered influence of having sustainable development by prioritizing the circular economy principles. Because when talking about circular economy, we really need to understand which phases that we currently involve, and we want to foster the practices of circular economy into procurement. Because normally for infrastructure projects and construction, it starts from the earlier stage. We need to have inception phase, we need to have planning before we can embark into the design and also construction phase of a building or infrastructure. So I would say if we have a clear policy and regulatory framework from our government, especially if we have strong government policies, procurement guidelines that can mandate circularity, it will be one of the success factors that can have that circularity integration. But we need to revisit again. If our country is currently using it as a voluntary scheme, so probably it's time for us to revisit the industry readiness, whether we can make it as a mandatory scheme. Okay, and then in terms of adopting green public procurement, GPP policies, because some of the countries using the term as GPP, but in Malaysia, we use it as a GGP, government green procurement. We need to have a clear circular economy principles, because if, like Sanjay is explaining just now, okay, what are the difference between the SPP and also GPP? If we are currently have environmental and also economic principles into our procurement, it is actually not a comprehensive sustainable, because we don't inculcate or foster out the social aspects into the procurement. Even though indirectly, if we implement green government procurement, indirectly social impacts are there. It's just that explicitly it is not mentioned somewhere in the procurement system. So for infrastructure projects, we are not only focusing on the materials, actually, we are focusing into the more comprehensive system, like all the stakeholders understand what does it mean by green. So we need to have an agreed definitions, what does it mean by green in construction and infrastructure. Okay, so that is my first point on the key success factors. So the second point is we need to require life cycle thinking and also system thinking into our procurement of infrastructure projects. So we are no longer focusing on the initial cost of the materials only. We need to focus on the long-term value, which means that when we use that materials, we need to include the maintenance and also end-of-life considerations into our materials usage for the projects. So we need to shift our lowest cost mindset to a total cost of ownership by considering all these long-term environmental and also financial aspects. So we need to ensure that the materials, the construction materials especially, are viable to be used for the long term. So where can we embed the life cycle cost or the life cycle thinking concept? We can embed it during the value management process. Yeah, like in Malaysia, we have this process which is called as value management principles, where it is not actually a cost-cutting exercise, but we revisit the materials that have value, or what do we call as a value for money, and then we embedded the life cycle cost concept into it. So we predict the maintenance cost that we are going to expand if we use that material. So we predict the cost now before we use that materials. Yeah. All right. The third one is the stakeholders' readiness and also multi-stakeholders collaboration. As I mentioned in the earlier session, we can see that infrastructure projects are really complex, really unique. So who are the stakeholders that behind or include in our in this industry? So we have building owners, we have designers, we have project consultants, engineers, architects, the suppliers, contractors, and many more. So if we can provide a capacity building programs for all of these stakeholders on circular procurement standards to ensure that all of us are prepared and capable, I believe that would be one of the success factors as well to integrate circularity in SPP and also GPP. We also can adopt PPP concept, public-private partnerships to drive innovations in circular infrastructure as well. And I think the last one is in terms of adopting digitalization and also innovation practice. Maybe I can share a little bit, because this is one of our main team of National Construction Policy 2020 in Malaysia. So we really to encourage the usage of digitalization and innovation practice, like the use of BIM, bidding information modeling, and also industrialized bidding system, IBS. Because basically, when we require this as a success factors, we can leverage the technology to track materials, to optimize the resource use, and also to reduce the waste, including circular economy concept. So we are no longer talking about where does the material goes after we use the building after 30 years or after 60 years or after 90 years. So we really need to track down all of these innovation technologies for a certain time, so that it can promote circularity concept into construction and also infra projects, which for me is not it is not a new concept actually. Yeah. So as for Malaysia, we have a mandatory regulations using IBS usage for public works project, which requires at least 70% of our projects must go through IBS scoring system. So I think this is these 4 factors that can be leveraged as the success factors to integrate circularity in sustainable public procurement. Therefore, if we want to have a clear circularity, we need to have a clear national policy. It will inevitably foster a strong value chain among construction stakeholders, consists of our project owners, designers, contractors, suppliers, and etc. So I think that would be my points of view in terms of the success factors. Back to you, Dr. Anne.
Thank you, Professor Natasha. Yeah, I hear key 4 success factor, and also you share already. I can hear that you already share the best practice from Malaysia, which is very impressive. Thank you so much. So now regarding the best practice, I would like to move to the second question. So now I would like Jill. Could you begin by sharing some of the core practice of HOSIM? What are you implementing to support circularity in the construction and procurement?
Thank you so much for having HOSIM Philippines to be part of this webinar to promote circular economy. So in HOSIM Philippines, we use 5 best practices, at least 5 principles. And we really operationalize these principles to make sure that circularity and sustainability is embedded in our day-to-day operations. So the first one is that sustainability and circularity is really embedded in our business strategy and operations. So our sustainability framework has 4 pillars. It's climate action, nature and resources, people, and circular economy. So just zeroing in on circular economy, we operationalize that through our co-processing technology. So in our cement operations, we reuse residual waste that are no longer, so this is waste that are no longer recycled, that can no longer be recycled. And we use that in our kiln operations, used as alternative fuel and raw materials. So just in 2024 alone, we were able to use 1 million tons of waste in our cement operations. We also collaborate and partner with local government units and some private organizations to divert waste, residual waste that are of course qualified. We divert them from landfills and bring them to our cement operations. So in particular, we partnered, for example, in 2024 with Carmen. This is a municipality in Davao del Norte in Mindanao, where we agreed to reuse 350 tons of residual waste. This is already 350 tons annual residual waste diverted from landfills and brought to our cement operations. So this strategy allows us to decarbonize our operations, but at the same time promote circular economy in local municipalities. So this is just one out of around 70 local government partnerships all over the Philippines. This also heavily reduces our reliance on virgin resources. Also, we do, the second one is we do transparent reporting and accountability. So we just, as one of our speakers said, we need to monitor and report and put specific metrics in circularity. How do we know if we are being circular, right? So in HOSIM, we report and monitor our sustainability KPIs. So one of which is the use of our waste in our cement operations. So the HOSIM group actually requires all the countries to monitor how much waste is reused in our cement operations. We also report on internally generated waste and how sustainably do we reuse those waste, right? So the third one is our commitment to international standards. So we have policies and directives and standards in place, and we follow them, and we are audited by the group and external auditors to make sure that we are aligned with international standards. So we align our policies to for example, the Global Compact Initiative, the OECD business guidelines, for multinational enterprises, and the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. So in Holcim, we have the Sustainable Procurement Directive, we have the Circular Economy Policy, we also have our minimum control standards on circular economy. We also have our Sustainable Procurement Management Standard and our Supplier Code of Conduct. So these policies and directives make sure that we work with suppliers who are also responsible in terms of practicing sustainability and circular economy when applicable, no? So this is not just on certain technicalities or technical requirements, but we also require them to practice sustainability in their operations. So we have a reporting mechanism, we have audits, and then we do annual verification to make sure that they do really practice sustainable practices conforming to the ESG framework. The fourth principle that we use is, of course, we produce our low carbon building solution. So we have our blended cement. So for example, we have the Excel Eco Planet, that's our general purpose cement, which has at least 30% less carbon. And then we also have our other blended cement. We have Optimo for tall buildings, vertical infrastructures. We have Solido for roads. So these blended cements are available in the market, which has the same performance, same strength compared to the ordinary Portland cement, which is carbon intensive. And of course, the fifth one is we advance or we promote innovations and digitalization in our operations. In fact, the Holcim Group has an initiative called the Plants of Tomorrow, where we modernize all our plants so that we can increase operational efficiency, and we optimize the use of energy, water, and other natural resources. So we use tools in our plants such as artificial intelligence, robotics, sensors that automate certain processes so that we can really optimize the use of our resources. So in general, that's how we practice sustainability and circularity in our operations.
Thank you so much, Jill. Thank you for sharing the 5 principle practice of Holcim to the participant. And I heard that you have done so many things that to support also the waste management in the country. Very impressive. Now I would like to turn to Rizky, turning to you. So what's a regional initiative or example from ASEAN, from the ASEAN context that you have seen that support or enable the circularity in infrastructure procurement, especially those connected to energy efficiency or public procurement tools? And also, is there any existing tools? Maybe would you like to share with us?
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne. And first of all, I would like also thank for the opportunity to contribute to this conversation. And indeed, that the connection between sustainable public procurement or green public procurement and energy efficiency has been gaining tractions in recent years as well. And I'm from the ASEAN Center for Energy. We are an intergovernmental organization representing the collective interests of 10 member states in the energy sector, where we see and made the energy efficiency and conservation as our top priorities. And now I'm also working on a project called the Asia Low Carbon Buildings Transition Project, where we are aiming to accelerate the shift of low carbon buildings in Asia. We are targeting 4 ASEAN member states countries plus India, which includes Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand, and also Vietnam. And within this project, we are seeing that the sustainable public procurement and also energy efficiency are 2 critical levers for driving the transition towards low carbon buildings. So maybe to put into context, at the ASEAN regional, as a region level, in the building sector, the air conditioning is the single largest energy consuming appliances, accounting for around 17% of all building energy use. While the building itself as a whole, it's accounts for 22% of region's total energy consumption. So we can see that this might have a huge impact in terms of the energy consumption. And these numbers are also may not be declining over the next years because we also understand the rising temperatures, warming climate, driving up the demand for air conditioning itself. And it is also projected that the energy consumption coming from the air conditioning alone will be expected to double by 2050. And then maybe to also adding to these issues as well, that over 30% of the electricity generations still come from coal, which is the main contributor of the greenhouse gas emissions. So to put into context on where energy efficiency might fit into the sustainable public procurement, we might see by choosing the appliances that are designed to be using less energy rather than to have it drain the utilization of energy, we can significantly lower the environmental impact as well. So in the sense that when the government prioritized energy efficient appliances in their public infrastructure projects, so it would have tangible steps towards meeting their climate commitment to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And for instance, like in large-scale infrastructure projects, like hospitals, where hundreds of air conditioners frequently operating like 24/7, so we might imagine on how the decisions to procure energy-efficient appliances can provide greater value beyond reducing emissions, lowering operating costs, and also extending the equipment lifespan as well. So encouraging as well that the several ASEAN governments such as Thailand and Indonesia are already considering integrating the energy efficiency criteria or elements within their public procurement policies or guidelines, where they are mainly referencing or tied the existing energy efficiency standards and labels as tools to inform their decision-making processes. So if we deep dive further on the specific policies or tools that are used to basically guiding the procurement processes, these countries, most of the ASEAN member states has enacting the standards and labeling program. One of it is called the minimum energy performance standards, where this is setting the baseline of efficiency, and this will allow only energy efficient appliances to be sold within the market. And even at the ASEAN level, at the regional level, we are now advancing our standards harmonization efforts. This is also built up from the EU Switch Asia funded program as well in the past 10 years called the ASEAN Shine, where we are harmonizing the minimum energy performance standards and also testing standards across the region. So this will allowing the free flow of goods across the region because the technical barriers are removed. And then another part of those is the energy efficiency labels, where they provide like clear standardized informations for easy comparisons, such as using like star rating. So if you see in the air conditioner, you might see the label that's showing the like 5 stars, 4 stars. So it's used to compare the performance of the appliances or air conditioner in terms of the energy consumption. So so for instance, that the procurement guidelines of the member states will be tied with these criteria, and using these standards and labels as to be like a minimum, using a threshold of certain ratings where they're allowing them to procure this kind of air conditioning, for instance. And under the Asia Low Carbon Buildings Transition Program, we are taking this initiative into like another next level, because currently the main procurement processes or guidelines still considering the minimum energy performance as their like a minimum threshold. So we are now promoting or integrating the best available technologies for energy efficient cooling, particularly those who are using the natural refrigerants into the green public procurement guidelines in the building sector, both for a regional and also at the national level. So I think also I concur with the statement of Dr. Natasha as well, that these guidelines will also require to incorporating the life cycle costing. So it's not just about the upfront cost. So the guidelines that we are developing, it's and also tools to calculate the life cycle cost of the air conditioning, covering the operational costs, maintenance, and even the disposal or replacement costs. Because while the cheaper appliances might be cost effective initially, but at the longer term, the cost might be significantly higher due to inefficiencies. While on the other hand, although the energy efficient models might often have a higher purchase price, they will later on be paid back over the lifespan through the energy savings and also lower maintenance costs. So to sum up, we see that the sustainable public procurement is more than processes, so it's a powerful force for change. When the government choose the energy efficient and low emission technologies, so they just don't only cut costs, but they're also reshaping the market as well. Because where the procurement demands greater efficiency, pushes further the manufacturer to innovate, suppliers to compete, and also the industry standards to rise, and also ultimately the energy efficient and low carbon buildings will be new norm later on in the future in the region. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rizky, for sharing us with the use of energy efficient appliances, especially the standard and the labels will be very important tools for the region to move toward improvement for the energy efficiency that leads to low carbon building. And yes, and thank you all for Professor Natasha, Jill, and Rizky for your valuable insights. So today we have learned that circular procurement in infrastructure and building is not just a vision, but it is already being implemented at different level. We heard from Jill how HOSIM is actively partnering with the stakeholder through its low carbon solution and sustainability pillars, and Rizky gave us a clear look at how ASEAN regional initiatives and energy efficiency tools are laying groundwork for circularity in the public procurement. And Professor Natasha shared us the rich experience from Malaysia pilot projects and emphasized how government commitment and collaboration are important for the success. Together, your experiences show that policy alignment, innovation, and practical tools can work hand in hand to make the infrastructure procurement more circular, resilient, and future ready. So with that, I would like to thank all our panelists, and I will now hand the floor to Dr. Panchaporn for the QA session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, I myself enjoy a lot. Just listen to what three of you have shared. And now I try to check if there is like questions in the chat box, but unfortunately I did not see one. But I found one actually. It said, thank you for sharing the impressive experience from the Malaysia and the Philippines. I would like to ask which government entities in the Philippines and Malaysia is responsible for ensuring the implementation of these initiatives. Maybe we can stop as it is now. So who would like to start first, Malaysia or Philippines?
Probably I can help to answer this one first, because I'm talking about the success factors, and I'm mentioning that we need to have a clear policy from our government as well, right? Okay, so in Malaysia, because when we have construction industry as our main focus, so definitely our Ministry of Works is the one who shall be the entity that can regulate these policies in terms of how to integrate circularity and also green concept into our procurement system. That is number one. But in terms of the a clear instruction, because we have budgeting to come up before we can have buildings and also infrastructure projects in Malaysia. So the instruction must come from Ministry of Finance. So that is I can say about the government's entity. So, but of course, it needs a strong strong collaborative from this ministry. Not only Ministry of Works who need to think about the policy or the directions of construction industry in Malaysia. Not only Ministry of Finance needs to have these clear instructions on regulating GPP implementations in Malaysia, but we also need some other agencies as well, the enablers, like under Ministry of Works, we have Construction Industry Development Board as the federal agencies, and also Public Works Department, who also coordinating the public works project and also infrastructure projects in Malaysia. So all of these agencies are the one who collaborates together to ensure that these initiatives and directions becomes a successful implementation. So I think in terms of many things who should be regulating, the first one is Ministry of Finance, and then go to the specific ministry who coordinates the construction and also infrastructures policies, which is Ministry of Works.
So
Okay.
yeah, may I ask the follow-up question, which is quite related, because actually Mr. Pedro also would like to ask, are there any like a working team that dedicated, you know, to really work in these things? Because you mentioned that many ministries, right, work together, but are there any like a formal team?
Okay. All right. So maybe I can share a little bit our experience here. But when we coordinate the GGP implementation, so we do have what we call as GGP core team. So in this GGP core team, there's a representative from Ministry of Works. We also have the representative from Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economics, MGTC, Machine Green Technology, and also Ministry of Housing and Rural Development as well. But in terms of policy directions, yes, as what I said, the Ministry of Works who they have these initiatives of technical working groups who mandate the GGP. But if you want to make sure that this dedicated working team can monitor and also implement GGP, we need to set this core team into our country so that the GGP is moving towards another level, not only in terms of developing guidelines, and after that, we are not able to track and monitor how far the GGP has been implemented in regional level.
Yes, thank you. And now back to Jill. So the same questions.
Sure. So in the Philippines, there are several national government agencies that work together so that we can have sustainable or green public procurement. So we have the Government Procurement Policy Board. So they oversee public procurement policies, no? So they can integrate circularity principles into procurement guidelines and standards. So they're the ones who also implement the green public procurement roadmap in the country. So the other national agencies who are involved in these policies are, of course, the Department of Public Works and Highways, because they are responsible for infrastructure planning and implementation in the country. And so as a national government agency, they can actually really promote the reuse of materials, promote sustainable design in construction, and practice or promote circular economy practices. We also have the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Of course, they set the policy or the framework on environmental impacts and management and reporting, so that all key players in the country will adhere or will comply to these environmental regulations. And we have the Department of Trade and Industry, particularly the Board of Investment. So they can actually promote investments or drive investments into sustainable construction practices or materials and projects, and then thus promoting circularity. We also have the NEDA, or the National Economic and Development Authority. So they develop policies for sustainable and resilient infrastructure. And of course, lastly, on the ground, we have the local government units. So they're the implementing bodies in our municipalities, in our local community. So I think they can really promote through education and awareness raising in their reusing, recycling, and promote the use of green materials in their localities. And of course, they can come up with municipal ordinances that align with the overall national policies on green procurement.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Jill, for your sharing. And I think I have one last question to Risky. So, is there any initiative at ASEAN level to mainstream the GPP in the member state, apart from what you have mentioned about the harmonizing the minimum energy standards on the energy efficiencies?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yeah, indeed. Actually, at the ASEAN level, at the regional level, there is also like a separate initiatives called the ASEAN Sustainable Consumption and Production Framework, which this one led by the environmental ministries of the 10 ASEAN member states. And I believe that the development or the streamlining sustainable public procurement or green public procurement is also one of the key priorities under this ASEAN SCP framework, where one of the goals is to establish the good practice for green products and procurements. And I think now the initiatives is currently is developing the like a regional guidelines or guidance on the good practices for GPP, while mainly the initiatives revolves around the information sharing and also the capacity building program. While there's also a conversation for later for harmonization of the like a purchasing criteria. And also different good practices on the green public procurement processes. Yeah, so there's some few initiatives that that might be happening also at the higher ASEAN level as well. Apart from the one that I mentioned, it's really focused on the energy sector part.
Yeah, thank you, Risky, for your sharing. And I think here comes to an end of today's webinar. But before I go that, I would like to thank you, our moderator, and the 3 panelists for this second panel discussion. Thank you very much. Yes, and now I would like to invite our chairperson, Sinaida, again, to just convey the concluding remarks. Sinaida, over to you.
Thank you very much to all the participants, distinguished speakers, for a very insightful discussion, which, like Dr. Nan, I also fully enjoyed. As we've heard, embracing GPP or SPP within the circular economy framework requires much more than adjusting procurement criteria, though it's also, of course, necessary. It demands a fundamental transformation in the logic of procurement itself. This transformation carries important implications for how we calculate the costs, evaluate values, how we structure procurement system in itself. And existing legal and regulatory frameworks, as experts shared with us, often fall short, but in a process of evolving as well. And we urgently also need the new tools and metrics which can embrace life cycle thinking and reflect also circular principles. And this is quite important. This work relies on more comprehensive understanding of how a circular economy applies to infrastructure, not limited to recycling, but really encompassing, as Natasha said, value retention through better maintenance, high quality standards, longevity of buildings and materials. These aspects really must become central in shaping future standards and monitoring systems and impact evaluation frameworks, including within the quality management system of the materials and also the design of the infrastructure, buildings, well, whatever falls under the category of infrastructure. We also touched on the complex and evolving perspectives of both procurers and suppliers, and they are in the absence of clear standards, which are still evolving, and definitions around circular procurement and quality criteria. This still remains a challenge, though, of course, colleagues, the speakers show to us today where the evolution is happening, where the pilot projects, the new really innovative instruments are coming. What is most needed now is clearly flexible tool maybe and guidance notes grounded on best practices. Again, the ones which we've heard about today. Practical resources that can guide implementation across different contexts and really keeping in mind the different level of capacity which may not necessarily be there to the extent we need it right away. A particularly important point raised today concerns the governance and institutional arrangements of GPP, and we are clearly witnessing an evolution in this space, particularly in the point of last discussion and exchange, with ministries of finance increasingly taking on a leadership role in driving green and circular procurement. Traditionally, we all know that this domain sat with the ministries of environment, but the growing involvement of finance ministries signals also a critical shift towards embedding sustainability and circular economy in the core economic decisions and fiscal frameworks. So this development has the potential to strengthen the mainstreaming of GPP, but it also calls for improved coordination and clarity of roles across the institutions, and not only the line ministries in the countries, but also with the business sector, with innovation institutions, where innovation is incredibly important. We didn't speak so much about that, though of course the speakers today have been really pointing at the practices which are in itself in innovation. So capacity development, we said, remains a top priority here, and those preparing and implementing procurement actions must be equipped with the knowledge, tools, institutional support necessary for this transition. So the knowledge centers also being brought today, and a related initiative will be vital in enabling this change, foster collaboration, knowledge exchange, like we are having today. So we are hoping that this kind of exchanges will continue among the colleagues. A special thanks today, and this is a very pleasant part of this conclusion, saying thanks to all of us who are present, thanks to our expert speakers, true innovators in reimagining production, reimagining business models, reimagining policy frameworks to advance circular economy and GPP practices, and your leadership and commitments, certainly the shaping the future of green and sustainable and climate resilient. Let us remember the climate element of this procurement. Our sincere gratitude also go to our moderators and facilitators, Elodie, Dr. Lunchakorn, Sanjay, and of course, Dr. Nan, who brought us, first of all, together today in preparation to the webinar, and also skillfully guiding us through the conversation, which happened to be very rich. Finally, biggest thanks to you, our participants, broad participants, right now in real time, and those which will be looking at this record in the future. Your engagement in real time or delayed, your questions, your dedication to sustainable transformation is really what makes these conversations and this thinking meaningful and impactful. So let us stay together in this discussion, and thank you for today. Have a very good afternoon or good evening. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Nan.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Sinaida, for a very well wrap up for our webinar. So, and then, yeah, thank you very much for everyone to join us today. Your active participation was highly appreciated. And then please stay in touch. We have several platforms that you can connect to us. Yeah. And then until next time, then bye-bye. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Dr. Nan. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye. Have a nice day.